How's it going, everyone? Sorry for weather SpongeBob. Today is October 28th, 2021, and today we're going to focus on our next potential major nor'easter that's expected to happen in the very near future within the next 24 hours. And we'll also talk about our next potential snowstorm that could impact the Midwest later next week. Well, before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current water vapor imagery for the United States at this point, and you see that we have an extratropical cyclone moving through a mid-latitude cyclone moving through the eastern half of the United States at this time. We, of course, see the defining features of a mid-latitude cyclone, where we see convection on the eastern side, we see dry air pretty much wrapping around the center of circulation, which is right around here at this point, and we see a lot of cold air behind it and strong northerly flow just to the west of this mid-latitude cyclone, and eventually it's expected to move further northeastward, and then we should see it develop just a little bit, and we should see just enough convection to a point where we will see a pretty large amount of precipitation throughout the eastern half of the United States over the next 24 to 48 hours, and that could raise concern for flooding, especially in the Northeast, which just experienced a nor'easter that brought tons of flooding to the Northeast. But as right now, you see that it isn't very powerful. You see that the cloud tops or the water vapor there isn't a ton of water vapor associated with this mid-latitude cyclone, since there isn't a ton of instability throughout this storm. The temperatures, while there certainly is a decent amount of instability, there isn't a ton to the point where we're seeing just rapid intensification or a lot of convection associated with this mid-latitude cyclone, and it should gradually strengthen as this moves further northeastward once it encounters a little bit more of an unstable environment as a result of the warmer air temperatures over the warmer than average Gulf Stream at this time, and the warmer air temperatures along the Gulf Stream will interact with the colder air to create a more unstable environment for this to gradually intensify as this moves further northeastward to allow for more convection and precipitation to occur. Now, taking a look at the current radar throughout the United States at this time, you see that here's where the mid-latitude cyclone is located, and we're seeing a decent amount of rain occur throughout Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and Minnesota at this time. By the way, it's very late on October 28th at this time, so there's still certainly this is certainly subject to change as we head over the next 48 hours, but you see that there isn't a ton of rain. There isn't. However, the thing I want to point out is that this is moving relatively slowly for an extratropical cyclone, because, like I said, there isn't a lot of unstable air associated with this mid-latitude cyclone. So as a result, the westerly flow upon this storm is relatively weak for a mid-latitude cyclone, so it's moving relatively slowly, which would mean that the rainfall will stay over the same area for a couple hours for the most part. The good news is that there isn't enough unstable air for that rainfall to be necessarily very heavy, and we're seeing scattered areas where there's dry spots, so we won't necessarily see at least a major flood threat out of this, but it will change as it moves further northeastward once it encounters more of an unstable environment. Now, taking a look at the precipitation forecast provided from the GFS model to give us a good idea of where exactly this storm will move and how strong this will be, and where exactly and which portion of the United States should experience the most rain. If we were to continue to move forward into October 29th, tomorrow morning, you see that the rainfall is extending through Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, Ohio, and extending to Michigan as well. And the storm will continue to move further northeastward along with the rain associated with it. And you see that the jet stream is well up to the north, so there isn't a lot of unstable air over this storm for this storm to rapidly intensify, but we should still see a pretty large area of rain associated with this mid-latitude cyclone, as it's going to have a strong southerly flow on the eastern side that's going to move directly over the very warm Gulf Stream water, and that should allow the air molecules to space out a little bit more to hold a lot more water vapor, and that should create just enough rain to dump a good area of 2 to 3 inches throughout the mid-Atlantic states. As you see that this will extend to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, very late on very late on Saturday into early Sunday, and then eventually it'll approach New England by Sunday morning with heavier rainfall, and we should see another boost in terms of strength as this moves further northward, because you see that the air becomes a little bit more unstable as it heads further northward. We're beginning to see that jet stream dip further southward right around the Halloween time frame, and we will see it strengthen just a little bit along with the rate of precipitation. But the good news is that by the time it really does begin to strengthen, it's going to be far up well to the north of the United States, so it won't really impact the northeast as bad as, let's say, last nor'easter, but we still should see heavy rain associated with this storm for the most part. Now, you might be wondering, what are the possible scenarios with this nor'easter? Could we see less rainfall? Could we see more rainfall? And what do we need to take a look at right now to determine whether or not this storm will be stronger or weaker? So pretty much to determine whether the storm will strengthen or not in the more than expected in the near future is taking a look at the temperature readings as we go forward, because if we do see a little bit cooler air that's a little bit cooler than expected throughout the Midwest, or a northerly flow that's a little bit stronger than expected, then we could see a more unstable environment for more precipitation to occur overall. But if we do see the temperatures a little bit warmer than initially expected throughout the Midwest, and a northerly flow that's a little weaker, then expect a little bit less instability, and as a result a little bit less rainfall throughout the East Coast as a result of less lift in the atmosphere that will be induced by the warmer than initially anticipated air mass throughout the Midwest. So that's definitely something we need to keep in mind over the next several hours. At this point, it seems like the GFS model is expecting a very large area of 1 to 2 to maybe 2 to 3 inches throughout the East Coast from this nor'easter. If we were to take a look at the precipitation forecast provided from the GFS model, at this time you see that moving forward over the next 4 days, there's a large area where we're going to experience well over 1 inch of snow, 1 inch of rain, and we even see some areas approaching 2 to 3 inches, such as right around West Virginia, and we do see areas over 2 inches throughout New England as well once the storm gets its act together a little bit more. But for the most part, we should see an area of 1 to 2 inches, which may not sound like a lot, but considering the fact that a lot of the Northeast already experienced a very powerful nor'easter with a lot of rain, it's going to add up, and we could see river flooding throughout the Northeast and potentially a flash flood threat, especially closer to New England, where the storm could get a little bit more convection going for rapid precipitation to occur. If we were to take a look at the precipitation forecast provided from the European model at this time, you're going to see that the European model is also forecasting very similar forecasts to what the GFS model is saying. A lot of precipitation throughout the Northeast. In terms of accumulated rainfall, total accumulated rainfall, you're going to see that the European model is a little bit more lenient on bringing a little bit more rain, where we do see a bigger area of 2 to 3 inches and a bigger area of 1 to 2 inches overall. But for the most part, I'd say they're similar. For the most part, you should expect 2 to 3 inches throughout the Northeast, which will add up. Keep in mind that in a lot of areas in the Northeast, especially close to New England, the rivers are already quite high for you. So even 1 to 2 inches or even 3 inches of rain could definitely add a little bit more feet of water right along the riverbanks, or above the riverbanks if your area is already flooded. So you need to pay close attention to your rivers around your area. Remember, if you see a body of water, turn around, don't drown, because chances are that body of water is a lot deeper than what you'd expect. So make sure to prepare for flooding throughout the Northeast. Now, next, let's take a look at our next potential snowstorm that could have impact the Midwest into next week. Now, let's first take a look at the precipitation forecast provided from the European model. And if we were to continue to move forward, you see that the jet stream is well far to the north, but eventually we will see a pretty significant jet stream dip headed into the 4 to 5 day mark, where we're going to see the northerly wind component be a little bit stronger associated with this low pressure system moving through the border of the United States and Canada, and that should bring the colder air further southward. And that certainly raises concern, because if we see a northerly dip in the jet stream, a stronger northerly flow that will bring the jet stream further southward, it'll create a little bit more of an unstable environment in the northeast. So when a trough moves through, we're more likely to see a snowstorm occur. And of course, since the temperatures are colder, more of that precipitation will fall in the form of snow in the Midwest. And that's exactly what happens. The European model is expecting a pretty significant jet stream dip and a strong northerly flow associated with the low pressure snow. As a result, we're going to see a little bit of instability right around the Rocky Mountain ranges as the trough moves through, bring some snow to the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountains. But you see, as this next trough moves through, thanks to the amount of instability there is in this area, and thanks to the amount of cold air that's located in the Midwest as a result of this strong northerly flow, we do see a lot more snow in this area, which definitely does raise concern of a major snowstorm occurring in the Midwest if the jet stream were to dip a little bit further southward. You see that by the 5 day mark, we begin to see snow right around Colorado, and entering the 6 day mark, that snow extends into Kansas as well and New Mexico. So this will impact the more highly populated areas as well, such as Denver, Colorado, and even extending to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It really all depends on how far south that jet stream dips. There's still a lot of uncertainty because, again, I'm forecasting this right around 5 days out, so the forecast is certainly subject to change in the Midwest, but there's something we certainly need to keep in mind. In terms of the snowfall forecast provided from the European model, you're going to see that the European model is expecting a pretty large area of over 5 inches of snow, a good area of 5 to 10 inches throughout Kansas. This extends to Colorado as well. Denver is getting involved in 5 to 8 inches of snow, and even as far south as Albuquerque, New Mexico is getting involved in snow in this scenario, and we're seeing snow extend to the panhandle of Florida as well. So this certainly, it would be a pretty significant snowstorm for the Midwest if this were to come for fruition. And there's still certainly that possibility that more snow than expected occurs and that we could see a larger area of snow. It really all depends on the position of this jet stream. If it's a little bit further southward, we could see a more unstable environment for a more significant snowstorm to occur. That'll impact a larger population. But if the jet stream dip were a little bit less than expected, maybe closer to the GFS model's forecast, and you should expect a little bit less snowfall than expected, because if you were to take a look at the GFS model's forecast when it comes to snowfall, you see this GFS model is expecting a lot less snowfall, mainly impacting only Nebraska, Wyoming, and the higher elevations of Colorado, not affecting much of a large area at all, as this will mainly be a threat for the higher elevated areas, but no major threat for a lot of the cities such as Denver and Albuquerque, New Mexico. So there's still certainly uncertainty, especially now since the GFS model and the European model are in pretty big disagreements regarding the significance of this snowstorm and the significance of impacts this snowstorm could bring. So I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. It really all depends on the jet stream dip. Like I said, we'll need to pay close attention to that over the next several days to give you guys a more reliable forecast of how much snow you should expect in the Midwest from this upcoming snowstorm. Now, taking a look at the current temperature readings, this will give a good idea of how much unstable air there is in the atmosphere. And you see that we're seeing a strong northerly flow on the western side of this mid-latitude cyclone that's bringing the colder air further southward. However, this air isn't entirely so cold. You see that extending as far north as the northern Midwest states. Temperatures are still hovering right around the 50-degree mark, and while the 50-degree temperatures are moving further southward and interacting with the 60 to 70-degree temperatures located right around the Gulf Coast states, it isn't enough to really induce a very unstable environment. So we won't see the storm rapidly intensify, but it will be enough to bring a large amount of rain throughout the Northeast for this week. Now, taking a look at the flash flood risk, you see that there's a slight risk of flash flooding throughout the Mason-Dixon line, right around Pennsylvania and Maryland, and Washington, D.C. is involved, Baltimore is involved, so you need to keep in mind that there's still a threat of flash flooding associated with this potential nor'easter moving into the Northeast. Now, here's my rainfall forecast and I guess my snowfall forecast for this next potential snowstorm in the Midwest. For my rainfall forecast, I'm mainly expecting a large area of 1 to 2 inches. This includes cities such as Indianapolis, Chicago, and this includes Virginia as well, New Jersey, New York, Vermont, and even more states. But there's some small areas where I'm including 2 to 3 inches where the rainfall will be a little bit more pronounced. So I'd expect more flooding in these areas, and 2 to 3 inches right along the coast of New England, which is certainly the last thing you want to see, especially since the extreme eastern portion of New England got impacted hard by the last nor'easter, and to add another 2 to 3 inches of rain on top of it is adding insult to injury in that area. So this is something you guys certainly don't want to see, but make sure to still prepare for the worst throughout the Northeast, as flooding is more likely, especially in the Northeast where you guys experience a lot of rainfall, and you guys are adding more rainfall on top of it for this weekend. So make sure to keep that in mind throughout the eastern half of the United States. And in terms of my snow forecast for the second potential snowstorm, I didn't give any specific numbers because that wouldn't do justice to you guys, because there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding this snowstorm. But I'm at least expecting an area of heavier snow throughout Colorado, extending to Kansas as well, and moderate snow just outside of it. But this is easily subject to change over the next couple of days as we gain more confidence with the forecast. So once we get a little bit more confidence, I'll give specific numbers of how many inches of snow you should expect. But I'm gonna give like a vague estimate of where you should experience the heaviest snow with this next potential snowstorm throughout the Midwest. But yeah, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a great day.